Good to see everybody. Welcome. Welcome to those in computer land joining on YouTube and Facebook. Glad to have you in the space as well. A true honor to be here as always and to be able to share with you and unpack our sacred nature together and to deepen and strengthen this connection that will literally bring us to a place of true and everlasting peace. As cliche as that might sound, it is the actual fact of what we're really here to do is to bring peace back into our heart and by extension into the world. And so we have a mission, if you will. We have a purpose to complete. And we find that there's a deeper gnawing or itch underneath all of our busyness, all of our distractions, all of our misidentifications. There is that wanting to see manifest our deepest nature in the world, to bring about this, what in the Jewish tradition is called the tikkun ha'olam, the correction of the universe, the rectification of the universe. Within that system of belief, we are all aspects of the Creator, here to basically raise the sparks that have been lost in the obscurity of what are called the external forces, the forces of falsehood or superficiality or appearance. And it's by looking beyond appearance and into the pith or essence of who everyone really is that we act as those vessels or emissaries of the Creator to bring about the correction, the rectification, the resurrection of nature. And so this is really something that's all done within the mind. What we're discovering as we move forward, even in our scientific worldview, is that consciousness and the observer are really at the center of how matter is behaving. We see this, even dimly with the quantum physics view of how observation changes the behavior of subatomic particles and the way that experiments will play out. So the power of your observation and what you're choosing and intending literally goes into how matter behaves and shows up for you. So as we begin to dial in the impact of what that means, that we are conscious creators or unconscious creators, and matter and energy are behaving or feeding back to us everything that we are intending, observing, and believing. And so there is this great pivot point that we all must take within our own personal life, and that is, do you want to continue to be unconscious and create a life that is really not in a flow of positivity and upliftment and joy? Or do you want to shift and rearrange the way you approach the present moment as the observer and realize that it's all coming from you? It's all occurring based on your expectations, your feelings, your beliefs, what you want to see. That's what will be shown to you. And the power of your consciousness cannot be explained or overestimated. You're literally being the one that sends out the witnesses, and they come back to you with the messages that you're looking for. So lo and behold, you sent out your witnesses today. This morning. And here in this space, you're receiving your intention, a reinforcement of a part of your mind that wants to wake up, that wants to observe the resurrection of all matter and all energy into a divine presence, which is immediately and already a part of you, so that we can all recognize that we are the one self. And so that's what we're going to explore this morning. The realization, as it says in A Course in Miracles, that you cannot go home alone. Sorry. You cannot go home alone because we are misidentified as this separate person in a separate body, when in fact, as we're going to see in a few minutes, he'll say in A Course in Miracles, your soul, who you really are, includes everyone. So you have to experience the forgiveness and the love going out from you to everyone in order to ensure that you're headed in the right direction home. Because home includes everyone, because as disguised as it might be right now, everyone is actually a part of yourself. Right? Love your neighbor as yourself. Even love your enemy. Because deep down, they are all sparks of the Creator. They are all the light divine. So we're going to look at that today. We're going to be exploring it first through some of the prose of the Hermetica. And if you're familiar with the Corpus Hermeticum, it's the body of teachings related to Thoth or Hermes Trismegistus. You know Hermes Trismegistus. Hermes, the thrice great. He was a pivotal figure in ancient Egypt. It was a Greek term given to the god Thoth, the god of wisdom, magic, and language. And Hermes is the Greek equivalent of Thoth. And when the Greek Alexander's empire took over Egypt, there was a confluence of cultures and a syncretism that resulted. And so some of the ancient Egyptian wisdom teachings got blended with the Hellenistic or Greek wisdom tradition. And we have the Hermetica. And the Hermetica was a huge influence on early Christianity. And so what we find in the Hermetica are these hymns to God that are going to basically open up for us a different perspective of the mind and the self and the soul that will add a beautiful little flavoring to our conversation this morning. And then we are also looking at a little excerpt from the teachings of Ari. If you know the Kabbalah, the Ari he's one of the greatest Kabbalists of all time, Isaac Luria. And so he really is the one who kind of developed the idea of raising the sparks as a metaphor of bringing all souls back home to the source. So we're just going to use that as a way of sort of dialing in our direction into A Course in Miracles, which will bring us all the way full circle to the abundant truth of who we really are and what we're really here to do. Okay, so having said all that, remember, everything that we're about to discuss is metaphor and symbol. And we are using metaphors and symbols in language, and we are using metaphors and symbols in thoughts. So thoughts are symbols and words are symbols. In fact, as he says in A Course in Miracles, words are symbols of symbols, twice removed from reality. So thoughts are removed from reality. Thoughts are symbolic. They're trying to express something that can't be expressed. They're trying to package the limitless. They're trying to put into a finite definition or form or concept the infinite. Just can't do that. It's like holding your cup up to Niagara Falls. There's going to be some stuff left out. And so symbols like thoughts or symbols of symbols like words, at best, can point us home. Do not take the symbols or the maps for reality. And keep in mind when we say all of this that every sacred tradition, every wisdom teaching is a metaphor or symbol. At best, like Buddha said, a finger pointing to the moon. Don't stare at the finger. Don't get lost in the symbol. Go in the direction that the symbol is telling you to go and have the experience. Because what is happening when you stare at the symbol is that you think you're a symbol. That's why we stay lost in symbols. That's at the root of all fundamentalism, all literalism. We're a symbol. We're just this body. The body's a symbol. The body is an expression of our deepest nature, which is already wedded to the infinite. So we are so identified with the symbols, both thoughts and words and body, that we oftentimes misuse the sacred teachings. So I want to bring that out in the beginning of our talk this morning, because we want to keep these symbols open and vital in the way that they can land for you, because eventually, hopefully this morning, you will be able to allow these living, breathing symbols that connect you to the source of all life to open you back up to where you already are, in this union divine, in this God consciousness or great yoga or great union. Okay? So that is really where we want to focus this morning, because all correction, all healing of the planet must first come from one who already has undergone that transition from limitation back into the arms of God. You have to come home first before you can see the world healed. Because the only way you're going to see the world healed is if you stop blocking or barring your way to healing. That means you want to open yourself and become completely transparent to where these symbols are arising from. All of these sacred symbols are love letters. They're calls to you to come home, to come back to the light, to be who you really are, and to know your source and yourself, and to see that knowledge everywhere and in everyone. That's how the world gets healed. First, you come home. Then you see home everywhere you look. Even if others can't see it yet for themselves, you're in it. You can't allow illusions to replace truth for you anymore. So even by just holding presence the way you will when you come home, others will eventually have that stirring within themselves. Okay. So hopefully we are stirring and we are fanning the embers of the sacred fire within the heart and allowing yourself to rest within the radiance that is beginning to strengthen and amplify within the heart. Just finding your breath and opening to grace. And so we set a collective intention here this morning that we will open to grace, and whatever is blocking that opening, we will surrender it. We will offer it up to the light of Holy Spirit. We will lay it at the feet of the Guru, whatever symbol you find most effective for you. We will not allow any thoughts of falsehood bar the way of the flow of grace from entering our deepest core and relieving us of all burdens, all anxiety, and all fear. May we answer the call this morning and know who calls. And so it is. Okay, so let's start with the Hermetica. This is a very concise edition. This is entitled The Lost Wisdom of the Pharaohs, the Hermetica by Timothy Freak and Peter Gandy. And here's a little excerpt for you. The higher mind of the cosmos is known through thought alone. A soul with no inner vision is blind to God's goodness, tossed by the sea of passions which the body breeds. What fire burns like impurity? What hungry predator has the power to maim the body as impurity does, to mutilate the soul. Can't you see the torture that the impure soul endures? It shrieks, I am burning. I am on fire. I don't know what to say or do. I am devoured by the miseries that possess me. Are not such cries the appeals of a soul in torment? Such a soul bears the body like a burden, as if the body were its master and not its slave. Tear off this cloak of shadows, this web of ignorance, these shackles of decay, this living death, this conscious corpse, this portable tomb, this robber in the house. This enemy that hates all that you love, this garment that smothers you and holds you down. Ignorance floods the land, its currents sweep you away. Don't be borne downstream. Make use of the backflow. Seek the safe haven of liberation. Anchor there and find a guide to lead you to the house of knowledge. There you will see with the heart the brilliant brightness. If you shut your soul up in your body and demean yourself, saying, I cannot know, I am afraid, I cannot ascend to heaven, then what have you to do with God? Wake up your sleeping soul. Why give yourselves to death when you could be immortal? You are drunk with ignorance of God. It has overpowered you, and now you are vomiting it up. Empty yourselves of darkness, and you will be filled with light. There is no greater mistake than to have the power to know God and not to use it. Simply wishing and hoping to know Him is a road that leads straight to goodness. It is an easy road to travel. Everywhere God will come to meet you. Look, and He appears at times and places when you least expect. While you are awake or asleep, when you travel by water or land, by night or by day, whilst you are speaking or silent. This is because God is all. So a lot of ground was covered in that little bit, and that is first and foremost that we are only able to know God, the higher mind of the cosmos, by aligning our thoughts. So your thoughts are like these nuclear power plants that you give birth to every moment. And your thoughts are either intentionally separating you from God, in other words, willing your ignorance, or they're intentionally bringing you closer to God. As he had just said, even if you just have the slightest desire to want to know God, your source, the truth, you will then find that the way will be open because of your thought. Your thoughts are dictating to you every moment. Your intentions are the byproducts of your thoughts. So how you think determines what you see. And so we just want to clarify that because this is very important in moving us forward this morning. You can only think from two paradigms. There are only two paradigms or world views, fundamentally, that you can see this moment from. One paradigm says that you right now are separated from your source, and you're a physical body. Once you buy that idea that you are your name, your form, your story, your body, and then you think from that belief, you will never come home. Because you've enshrined on the altar of your heart the belief of separation. The other paradigm is you've never left your source. You're home already. You just are ignoring it. So even if you don't know the way, You can start thinking right here, right now, I'm actually just unaware of the fact that I'm already in God. God is everywhere. God is all. I'm not seeing it, but I want to see it because I believe I've never left. I'm just caught in the drunkenness of ignorance. Very different. One is insisting you know who you are. The other one is entering the kingdom of God like a child. And you will see the results of your thoughts. You will either see a world of separation that witnesses come to you to confirm to you that you are the body, you are your story, you are limited, you are born, you're going to get old, you're going to get sick, and you're going to die. You'll have all of your witness for that. It's not a safe world, because if you're only this little body, you should be afraid. Be very afraid. That's natural to be afraid if you're harboring your idea of separation, because that idea is fear. So that is a paradigm of fear. And there's no way out of that fear. Why? Because you're willing it. That's what you've chosen. And your will is as strong as God's because it is God's. Watch what the mountains will move and the waters of the sea will part when you will that you're no longer separate from God. You will have a completely different world where God becomes all, shining in all faces, playing on the radio, billboards, birds, everything will be echoing the voice of God because you're now listening for that. You will be in a completely different version of the universe. And that version of the universe will increasingly thin the veils of your ignorance and open you up to the radiance within your heart. Naturally, organically. Why? Because you're willing it. Those are the only two paradigms. And you're willing it right now. What are you willing right now? And so every moment comes another choice until you realize now that you don't want the choice between separation and union, insanity or sanity, fear or love. You only want one. You only want love. Once you've made that choice, then it becomes as effortless as breathing. In the beginning, quite difficult, quite challenging, because you have built a whole world that is giving you witness and juice for your paradigm of separation and fear. And so you have to actually begin to realize that you made that world of fear. You willed it. Because you're a divine being having a human experience, God cannot come in and interrupt that world for you. Right? It's really mythological thinking. If you think that God's going to come down and separate the sheep from the goats and punish the wicked and reward the righteous, and all you had to do was say a few words of belief and then live any way you want. That's not the way it works. It works when you will to know God, and then you realize that your world is a product of your will. So the only way that you'll see God is if you will to see God. He can't interrupt your world of fear until you're ready to give it up. It's going to stay there. So, Hermes kind of laid it on thick with the body of torment, huh? But the idea is if you mistaken yourself for the body, you're not going to see who you truly are. And then this brings us back to where we were last week in our talk in the Tibetan Lojong or mind training conversation that we had. That at the root of all suffering, right, the separate view, is self-cherishing. And your body is the symbol of your self-cherishing. And so you identify as the body, and when the body's happy, you're happy. And when the bodies that you like are happy, you're happy. But when other bodies come around that make your body unhappy, you hate them. You might want to kill them, either by thought, word, or deed. And it's all stemming from the constriction, the fear of self-cherishing. So we saw last week that we have to relax. We have to soften. We have to let go of the self-cherishing, because that is our only enemy, as they say in the mind training tradition. Your only enemy is self-cherishing. In fact, Dhammarakshita, one of the great teachers on Lojong, or mind training, in his discourse, Wheel of Sharp Weapons, he says that the enemy, ego, is a butcher. Calls him a butcher over and over and over again. Right? Harsh language. But why is the ego a butcher? Because he's chopping up, he's separating, he's cutting apart all of the members of yourself. Look at yourself. This is you. Go out there and see the least of these, my brethren. That's you. That's your soul. Turn on the TV and see that guy in the fancy suit that's lying to you. That's your soul. So don't demean yourself, Hermes says. Wake up. And then finally, there is no greater mistake than to have the power to know God and not use it. It's always at our fingertips. It's always right here. It's this choice. And the tricky thing is, right, the self-cherishing that we've identified with as our self, which is really the enemy, it's always going to side against you willing with God, willing to see who you really are, willing to wake up. It wants you asleep in ignorance. Just having a conversation before service. And sometimes when we're waking up, we go into a deep researching into how the systems of the world are set up in governments and banks and financial institutions and academia and religions. And when you really start to look at the way human beings have operated within these institutions throughout history, it looks like it's been a real shell game and a mind trap. And what we're looking at then when we're doing this deep dive into the research is how the as one author puts it, the perception deception gets played out. But one of the pitfalls and the potential traps is you'll see this system and those who are operating it, running it, orchestrating it, engineering the famines and the wars and everything else that maybe your research is showing you. These are all your witnesses. You put them there. You're a divine being that's willing to stay separate from your source right now. You need fall guys. You need villains in your movie. And that's your soul. You're very clever. We're all very clever at making it look like that's not me. That's the corrupt banking family. That's the corrupt politician. No, that's me playing a game on myself. And they can't do anything to me unless I'm willing right now to stay asleep. And when we take our power back and we will to wake up, we will see that they were only operating on the power of illusion. Because once we will to wake up, we're no longer alone. We literally will have the power of God coming back into our heart. And that power will then see the world for us and give us the guidance on how to act, what to speak, where to go, and bring all of the witnesses to us that power is sending out. We will undo the world of falsehood and all of the situations and institutions that are still at play that seem to be doing it to other victims. Right? This teaching is telling us there are no victims. That's what we must recognize if we're here to finally declare who we are and raise the sparks. Wake up, sleepyheads. So this is the Kabbalah of creation, the mysticism of Isaac Luria, founder of modern Kabbalah, translated in commentary Eliyahu Klein. Very short excerpt here. Now remember, what's really important to get is the reason why there was this the sparks got lost or trapped is because when the original intention of creation, according to the Ari, the Kabbalah, the Jewish mystical way, was that God created these vessels or souls to hold the light that was flowing out from the infinite. But what happened with each of the souls is that they wanted to receive for themselves alone. There was selfishness. And so with that selfishness, they couldn't contain the infinite because they were trying to limit it. And as a result of their selfish intention, they shattered. And when they shattered, they went into the lower world and they became these selfish external forces that we seem to be playing with now. And according to this teaching, again, metaphors and symbols, don't get stuck on the words here. But the idea is when Adam and Eve took this fruit, they, as a human species now, we allowed this impulse of wanting to receive for ourselves alone, this self-cherishing, to come into our mind, which veiled us from our home, blocked us, and sent us on this journey into the wasteland, into the external forces, into just seeing the body as the self, and then trying to take everything from everybody we could in order to make the body happy, right? So this is where we're seeing it from as we pick up the story here, and Eliyahu Klein says this: the shattered pieces are energy fields. Within them are forces that can obscure hope and light. So whenever you find yourself in a low vibe, heavy, cloudy, moody, scared, hopeless, these are the energy fields of the self-grasping, the self-cherishing, these external forces, right? That's what they're saying. Forces of illusion, forces of fear. So within these forces is the obscuration of hope and light. There is another way of perceiving these shattered pieces. One can look at the after effects of death as the potentiality for spiritual work. So that's what Jesus gets at in A Course in Miracles. He says what you're really looking at when you're seeing fear, hopelessness, sadness, loneliness, depression is a cry for love. That's all that the Holy Spirit can see when the Holy Spirit sees these dark forces. The dark forces are literally saying, spiritual work here. Time to do your spiritual work. Whenever you see liars and corruptors and deceivers, they're crying for love. They're trying to get something for themselves by lying, deceiving, even playing the victim. Because what they're really looking for is to go home, is to find that love that they lost, that they veiled. And they veiled it because of self-cherishing, clinging to their selfish ego. And they're not willing to let go of their selfish ego. It's like the monkey that puts its hand through the hole to grab the banana and can't get the banana because he's grasping onto the banana and can't get his hand out of the hole. So it's this idea, you're never going to break free and feel the satisfaction and peace as long as you're trying to get something for yourself alone. Selfishness is why we are seeing the world and the institutions of the world operating the way they do. We're willing it. Don't think you're not doing that. We're all doing that. We're collectively doing that. And the only way to undo it is you have to go within yourself and undo your own selfishness, your own self-grasping, and wake up to the fact that everyone is your soul. So every effect of these dark forces is really just the potentiality for spiritual work, to reveal the light, a call for love. What are you going to do when you hear a call for love? I'm not going to, that person deserves to burn. That person deserves to go to jail. And maybe they do on the level of form. We're not negating that fact. You break the law in the conventional reality, sure. Maybe jail is the right answer. Maybe that will actually curb the criminal impulses. Fine. But you don't hate your brother because they're putting themselves in jail so that maybe they can start to realize the error of their ways. You don't hate them for that. They're mentally ill. Even when they seem to have it all together and they're high functioning. If they're criminals, they're ill. They're not seeing reality and how it operates. So you can't hate your brother. You have to actually love them. And sometimes the loving act is putting them in jail. So again, all potential for spiritual work. And what work is to be done? What can be done in this situation? Well, the Ari explains, essentially within all moments of death and destruction, even that which is or seems to be overtly evil, there is a way of extracting the good within. This is called raising up sacred sparks. So my partner Lisa is a master at this. Don't look at her. She's very shy. There's a story in Islam that illustrates what Lisa does for me every day, basically. In Islam, they have this story of Jesus walking the road with his disciples, and there's this dead dog. Maybe you've heard this story. It's decomposing, maggots, flies, just a bunch of grotesquerie, right? And as they're walking by, they're smelling it, they're seeing it, and the disciples are really just grossed out over the whole thing. And Jesus looks at the carcass and goes, "My, how white those dogs' teeth are." And it's a silly, maybe, example, but it proves the illustrated point that there's always the ability to recognize the good. And like I said, I have a teacher that does this for me every day when I veer off, that there is something, even within the most vile person, that you can begin to see in them that will help you see the spark of divinity within them and give the love that they are crying for, even if it's just in your thought, even if the people have passed away, maybe mom or dad or a brother had treated you terribly. When you can take your self-grasping out of the picture and no longer see, what about me? What did they do to me? Right? That's the enemy. That's what's blocking the blessing from you. What about me? I'm upset. They offended me. No, they offended your self-grasping. And if you listen to that voice, you'll never find your happiness. And you'll stay in fear. So when you release that, again, people who have even passed that have been abusive or harmful or mean to you, you could see the whole scenario of your past with them as a cry for love. And you can actually give them the kindness, the love, the compassion that they were really asking for. And thereby taking that part of your soul and bringing it back to your heart. See, this is where Jesus says this in A Course in Miracles, and it's profound. One brother is all brothers, and they are all yourself. And what you give to your brother, you are giving to yourself. In fact, he says it. You can only give to yourself. So if you have a father, mother, friend, teacher, whoever betrayed you, treated you horribly, whatever, and you're holding them in hate, and you can't let go of that grip of really feeling offended and violated, well, know that there is a part of you that is punishing itself for keeping them in blame. Right? We're going to get more into that in just a moment. Just finishing here. So he says that we can raise the sparks in innumerable ways by eating food, praying, meditating, talking to someone. When one has an intention to raise the energy for the sake of heaven, for the sake of love, for the sake of truth, this becomes the first step in the correction or healing of all existence. How you eat your food, how you talk with others. Everything is being conveyed here. Remember, you're choosing every moment where you're looking out from. Selfishness, the will to receive for the self alone, or altruistically, the will to share the light, the love, the peace with every living thing. Even if you entertain that idea for a moment, like David Hawkins said, some thoughts will instantly weaken you kinesiologically, and other thoughts will instantly make you go strong. If you think about only for me, my joy, my pleasure, my gratification, that's going to weaken you. It's a weakening thought because it goes against reality. Reality is sharing, giving, altruism, compassion. So when you think of doing that, you go strong. So then finally, he says the way this process starts is first, there is a conscious awareness in all of your mundane actions. Am I doing this for selfish motivation? Or am I doing this with altruism, with kindness, with love, for sharing, for connecting with others? That all may prosper, may all win, may all beings be happy and free. So you check in all of your mundane pursuits. Is it motivated by your selfishness? Or is it motivated by your altruism? And then second step is manifesting this intention throughout all your relationships, beginning with yourself, and then proceeding to everyone. Being kind to yourself. You know, some of us are experts at doing this for others, and we get home and we get out the baseball bat and beat ourselves up. Others got it the other way around. But what we're going to see in a moment is if you're caught in harming yourself or others, it's really the same ego trip. It doesn't matter. It's actually this point now where we can let all blame go. Everyone is off the hook when you look at this moment from the compassion of the Holy Spirit, the Buddha nature, the Christ consciousness. Everyone is off the hook. Does it mean that you go running around and trying to fix and save everyone? No. No, no, no. Does it mean you let people who showed belligerent and toxic behavior back into your life because now you're altruistic? No. If they come around and they're playing the game of being loving and altruistic and compassion, sure. But if they're looking to take and deceive and harm, no. I love you too much. This is one of Lisa's ways of saying it. I love you too much to let you hurt yourself using me. So this is a section in A Course in Miracles, wonderful section that illustrates what we're saying here. It's called God's Blameless Son. And when he says son in A Course in Miracles, he's referring to that spark of divinity within all of us. We're one being, showing up in a myriad of forms with amnesia. It's me. You forget? You forget me? Here I am. Here you are. And this is the Son. The Son has amnesia. And the enemy of self-cherishing is stay asleep. You can take this spark and do what you will with it. You can will your own selfish agenda, your own selfish dream. And you have to take from others in order to get your needs met. But so what? You'll find people along the way who will partner with you in this agenda. They'll be willing to give a little bit to get a little bit, and all of your relationships will be transactional because they'll both be selfishly motivated partnerships. All your partnerships will be selfishly motivated. And there's no joy in that. There's no real relationship in that. There's no transparency in that. There's no real communication in that. And by golly, there's no happiness in that. You can't be happy if you are so consumed with what's in it for me. So never forget that the sonship is your salvation. When he says sonship, he means every living thing. That's the other beautiful teaching in the Lojong or mind training. All beings, because according to Buddhism, we've been rebirthing since beginningless time. So all beings at one point have been your mother. That means that they've given their life for you. They've nurtured you. They've gone without so that you could have. So even if you can't see it in those terms that they are your mother, they are still that cherished person for you. To look at all beings, animals, humans, sea creatures, every single unit of consciousness on this planet has loved you more than they've loved themselves and given themselves for you. So never forget that the sonship is your salvation. For the sonship is your soul. As God's creation, it is yours, and belonging to you, it is His. Your soul does not need salvation, but your mind needs to learn what salvation is, because the mind got caught in the trap of selfishness. The soul is always in the oneness of God, but we're blocking it from ourselves through our self-cherishing ego. You are not saved from everything, but you are saved for happiness and abundant living. It is your inheritance, given your soul by its creator, that you might extend this abundance. But if you hate part of your own soul, all of your understanding is lost. So one person that you consider to be unworthy or undeserving of the infinite love of God blocks your mind from your soul, because that's a part of you. You're denying. You're condemning. Is this easy at first, like I said? No. It's really challenging at first. But everything can begin to show you the opportunity for more spiritual work. And your choices become more, focused, deliberate, vigilant, until you realize, I just want love. And it doesn't really cost me anything to let these people off the hook. It really doesn't. I've been miserly with my love. And my miserliness, my not giving love to all, is why I'm suffering. That's it. That's the only cause. I'm holding it back from me. That's why he says, only you can deprive yourself of anything. You got to pause here, because this is such a hardwiring shift. It's such a rewiring of the way we've been programmed, right? Because when we are born as the body, it's me crying, me, pay attention to me, I want food, me. And that doesn't change. It's me. You're cutting me off. You're cutting me off, right? I have to get to where I want to go, and you're my enemy now. You're blocking me. Think about how many temper tantrums you have a day. And like we're saying, once you start to pay attention to this, you're no longer caught in the drunkenness or unconsciousness of it. So only you can deprive yourself of anything. That's why he says, listen to this now. Right after he says that, only you can deprive yourself of anything. Do not oppose this realization, for it is truly the beginning of the dawn of light. Nobody's doing this to you. Nobody's holding back your blessing. Nobody's holding back your abundance. Nobody's holding back your joy. Not even your spouse or your partner, where we really like to cast our blame. Not your mother, not your father. They didn't do that to you. Only you deprive yourself of anything. Do not oppose this realization, for it is truly the beginning of the dawn of light. Remember also that the denial of this simple fact takes many forms, and these you must learn to recognize and oppose steadfastly and without exception. So I just got my tax returns back, and I see what I owe, and it's crippling. And I'm thinking, Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and, all these billionaires don't even have to pay tax. Watch the way it shows up. It will show up in a myriad of ways, how unfairly treated I am. If only they were different, I would be happy. They're doing this to me. I'm not doing this to myself. I'm not depriving myself. Like Lisa likes to say, when you hate them, you're withholding your own abundance. That's what's doing it. They don't even exist. My hatred for them is what exists. That's the only impact I'm getting. So then look for the many forms that this will take. You must learn to recognize and oppose steadfastly whatever way it's trying to creep in, that you're not depriving yourself. Others are depriving you. Right? This is a crucial step in the reawakening of your divine will. The beginning phases of this reversal are often quite painful. Why? Because as blame is withdrawn from all of your cast of villains out there, right? You can't blame them anymore. Well, where are we going to put all of this? On you. I'm doing this. All right, so then I'm Jeff Bezos and I'm all of these politicians that I can't stand. All of that hatred is mine, right? So he says, be careful, because it's going to be painful at first when you withdraw that blame from the outside world, because now there's going to be a strong tendency to harbor the blame within. Me, I did this to me. I'm really kind of that scumbag, right? And then the ego is going to feed on that. It is difficult at first to realize that this is exactly the same thing. Blaming others or blaming yourself. There's no distinction between within and without, right? There's only one Son. There's only one being in various disguises. And your mind is either making this one being your friend or your enemy, and that includes you. Either everyone is blameless or everyone is blamed. That's it. Those are your two paradigms. Choose. One's happiness and freedom. The other is hell and suffering. Wrapping up here. If your brothers are part of you and you blame them for your deprivation, you are blaming yourself. And you cannot blame yourself without blaming your brothers. That is why blame must be undone, not reallocated. Simple message this morning. Stop blaming. That's it, period. Fill in the blank. Stop blaming. And I'm talking to myself. I'm the worst of yous. I am. I'm the worst of the bunch here. That's why God had to send me her. So I'm blind and deaf, and I'm always right. So finishing finally. That is why blame must be undone, not reallocated. Lay it to yourself, and you cannot know yourself. For only the ego blames at all. Self-blame is therefore ego identification, and as strong an ego defense as blaming others. You can only blame, the ego can only blame the ego. That's how you know you don't want it in any of its forms. Finally, you cannot enter God's presence if you attack his Son. Who's his Son? The least of these. And everyone. Okay, blue bag's going to go around. Any feedback, thoughts, questions? Joe has a mic for you. And just appreciate you, Joe, and all that you do. Thank you so much. Tireless, selfless service. That's altruism right there. Any thoughts or questions? Sorry I had to bring you up so many times, Lee. We just bless this offering. We ask that it be charged with the intention that all beings may know who they truly are and be happy and free. And so it is. Amen. All right, my friends, you can rise. We'll seal the deal. And just get quiet and find that precious wish-fulfilling gem within the innermost recesses of your heart and feel the light of God shining from its core. Just feel gratitude that we live in and as a universe of sharing that is forever abundant and forever held safe in love. That is the true nature of all. And so in this realization, we know that the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Amen. Have a beautiful afternoon, morning, evening. See you tomorrow night, hopefully. Course in Miracles, 7:15 p.m. Join us.